Right, so all I've done so far is sort of basic EQ and compression. Because I'm not going to make you guys watch me EQ a snare. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So generally, in terms of volume, I get my vocals, so it's bouncing at about sort of 12 here, and then everything else kind of, if you get it to a level where you can hear everything else, you find that you are not pushing too hard, so that we're clipping here, which is not what we want. And in terms of what I'm doing to the vocal, now where's my main vocal? Even if I turn everything off here, you'll find it's already quite heated. So I think what's happened is the guys recorded this, has got it going through a bit of a preamp and some analog compression. So when you hear other side from the view down there, the word there is really saturated and really heated. So you want to listen to any signal you've got. Normally I'd be putting saturation and stuff on that on. We sort of don't need it because Ableton's stock compressor here, all it is doing is the job of a compressor. It's just reducing the dynamic range. You're taking the loudest sounds, the quietest sounds, you're doing this. In contrast to, what's the best? If you listen to glue compressor. So these are the sort of opposites, because glue is trying to impart some kind of analog character onto the sound, right? And I think in this case it is a SSL 4000 sort of clone, what you'd find on that desk. Don't quote me on that, I might be wrong. So that, can you imagine a life satisfied? You hear then? As soon as it grabbed the threshold, it's a lot warmer, it's a lot more saturated, versus this compressor here, which I've dialed in already. Can you imagine a life? It's a lot brighter. We're not like messing with it too much. So you want to think about, as you're doing that, how much character we want to impart onto the sound. In this case, you sort of already done the work for me there. So what I have done is put a compressor on there. EQ after compression, purely because compression is listening for peaks in volume, right? So if I have a peak here, say, the compressor's going to pick that up and go, oh, there's more of this, I have to take that out. So you're working against yourself. Hello.
Hi there. Hello there.
Top of the food chain. And de-esser, for some reason, Ableton builds things into other plugins, so I think this is technically just a preset of compressor, but it works fine. For the longest time, I didn't think Ableton had a de-esser. It does, it's just buried in your presets and stuff. So, off. Can you imagine a life satisfied? Hear those S's? So all that's doing is compressing really specifically at, where are we? But 8 to 9K hertz. Kind of like a multi-band. And that really is largely it for vocal. This singer's very, very talented, so she has all of these layers going on. I can't imagine how much work this took. So once I've got vocals sitting roughly where I want, the next big task is drums. Drums is the most fun thing to mix. It's also the hardest, just because you've got a bunch of mics all pointed at the same thing. So it's kind of hard to get it sounding nice and having no phase problems, right? So, let's hear what we have. If I solo these. Not there. Get a loop going. Okay. So they're fine, but they're a little dead and a little sort of... They're not very exciting. So the first thing I would do about that is drum bus. This is the stock plugin I probably use the most. I don't know what other DAW users do without it, truly. I don't know what I'd ever replace it with. It's that good. I'm getting it out of the way early because I could do an hour on drum bus, honestly. So it's pretty much a channel strip, workflow wise. So I've got it set. I've got it set so it's on a return track here. So let's just send all the drums into it. And already, so that's too much, right? So let's put it in the middle. And controls wise, you've got a drive set in here. That's just a little bit of saturation. And crunch as well. Kind of like a distortion pedal, really. Damp is pretty much just a low pass filter. So it's taken all the high end off, which is why we have it on a send. Because if I just put it on the track and then I put this on, all my cymbals would die. You don't want that. You want a little bit of your dry signal coming through.
Is there a reason why you put it on a send and not just use a kind of dry wet?
A dry wet? As I understand it, dry wet affects the volume of the dry signal.
Yeah.
Whereas a send, you always have your dry signal at the same volume. And the other thing, it's great for workflow as well, because you might want to send other stuff into it. You might want to do some automation, and it's good to have it out of the way, right? No, I didn't say at the start, by the way. If you have, please interrupt me if you have any questions. It's totally fine.
Quick one bit about vocals.
Yeah.
Just wanted to sort of speak to that.
Yeah.
I noticed the vocals had quite a lot of reverb. Is that from the room?
Reverb, yeah, that is on sends.
So
yeah.
Got it. So I wasn't sure
I
if that
have.
was already baked into the signal and.
Oh no, it's not stocked. It's not stock. It's Valhalla Vintage Verb. Sorry about that. It's 20 quid. But yeah, it is.
That's fine, because I was hearing the reverb. Was that also something that was baked in from the recording?
It's even a preset. I'm totally fine using presets on reverb. No one's gonna catch you, I promise.
And with the vocal, I noticed there was quite a bit of like noise. Yeah.
The noise.
I don't know if you were keeping that in because of the character of it.
Yeah, a little bit. I had a chat with the producer about that, and I was like, "Hey, man, the signal you've sent me has a pretty bad signal to noise ratio," and he was like, "No, leave it in."
Yeah.
I think a little bit of because it was going through a preamp and then a saturator.
Yeah.
It's sort of part of it, I suppose. That was his decision. And if we wanted to sort of take it out, we could find it with an EQ and just pull it.
Yeah. Do you find that because it's the same noise across lots of channels that it might build up when you sum all the vocal tracks together?
Maybe, yeah, but this is why we have tracks grouped as well. Because obviously we just got the one main. I think this is a comp of a couple takes. But the rest, I have all my BVs on one channel here. So what we could do, which I think actually is on the final mix, we could just take an EQ8 here and just, oh, where'd that just go? I'm still getting used to Live 12 as well. I've literally just upgraded it, so I don't know where any of my stuff is. So if we isolate the BVs, find some of that noise.
That sounds much better. Maybe they'll all cancel each other out. I was about to say,
Potentially, yeah. So I think it is just in the main vocal because it's a comp of a couple takes. And yeah, everyone seemed to be happy living with it. But yeah, I could... find it and pull it out if we really wanted to, if we needed to. I think in the mix context, it's probably fine.
Yeah, sorry about
Yeah, drum bus. Yeah. No, yeah, it's a good question, yeah. Please distract me. Where are we at?
I think you turned your reverb time up to like 4.
So I did, yeah. Was I just absolutely playing with the reverb? God? Yeah, I did.
Nice. Okay. Oh, look at that.
70 seconds.
A good timer.
After this, we'll just
Pretty good.
Ah, I thought I blacked out then. Drums. So, boom is literally just a low boost, and then the frequency here is controlling where that is. So if you listen out, find where your kick is, sort of. So if you listen out for... You guys are my ears, I'm behind the monitors here. Oh,
Big fan of the boom.
yeah, it's awesome, right? So already, if I disable this, it's tighter. There's a little more of the room in there already. And it
You know
just...
what key the song's in? Because you can match the pitch.
Yeah, it is in... I played on this as well. It's in B major. So if we... Music theory nerd, does anyone have the...
F is 43.
5 sharps. What?
It's about 80.
Can't just press that.
Just press the
Just
button.
press the
You
button.
can move the frequency. I'll move
Yeah.
it towards B.
It tells you.
And then you click it and it will just
Snap.
snap to B.
See that little greyed out button at the
The
bottom?
bottom there.
Oh, the...
I'll just move
Yeah.
the frequency until it's
Oh,
towards
gotcha.
B.
Right,
Click
yeah.
it and it'll snap to the
You're teaching me?
frequency.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we really take the piss and boost it. And then the transients, this pretty much, you just find groove with this one. So if you turn it this way, you're softening the drums. Okay, so if you've got a really quiet song, like an indie pop like Phoebe Bridgers sort of thing, I would go that way with it, or if you have like filtered drums. But if you want to sort of get more groove in there, too far and you just like bury all the transients. But the transient, by the way, for those who don't know, is the stick physically hitting the drum. So the transient, the impact, and then the other part is the tail after that. And we'll get into that when we mess with the snare a little bit. But yeah, already, just without even touching any EQ or anything like that, we have got the drums much more exciting, much more lively, versus it's like pillowy and flat without it, right?
When you tweak the transient knob, is
Yeah.
that like compression and EQ, or because that's the whole thing with the channels?
It is-
a whole load of stuff, isn't it? It's all
It is
macroed up.
technically compression, but it is specifically transient shaping. So what it's effectively doing is it's, I think, playing with the distance in between the transient and the tail volume-wise, right? And we can get a bit more granular about that if we actually go into the snare. So,
Some good free transient shapers that I can share afterwards.
Oh, great.
yeah, oh
They're
please.
outside the
Yeah.
drum bus that you can just use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use them all the time.
Let's listen to just the snare track. So already here, you'll see this a lot on EQ. This is because on all real microphone signals, you're going to have a little bit of low end build up. So if I, is this a good example? Yeah, if you look at it, just under 90, 100 here, and you can't hear it, especially soloed, but across 10, 15 microphones, that's going to build up and it's going to get in the way of your kick, in the way of your bass. So what we've done is high pass completely, so that's not a problem. And to compensate, we boosted the sort of fundamental of the snare. So if even though we've cut a bunch of low end, if I turn this off, it actually gets thinner. So you want to find, I think it's about here, the note essentially that the drum is making when it's being hit. So we're at about 170, I think it could be a bit, about 150 maybe. We've taken out a little bit of 1K. Oh, there we go. Wow, this is the biggest display I've ever... I should buy a projector. Yeah. Generally I find, I don't know why I've not done this, but in terms of boosting and cutting, you want your cuts to be pretty thin, and you want your boost to be as wide as possible. It just keeps things sounding natural. If you do the opposite, you very quickly start sounding all phasey and weird. So already is without. 1K is the sort of cardboard box, pillowy thing in a snare. It tends to be between 1 to 2K. In terms of compression, now what we were talking about before with the transient, I want the compressor to miss this impact. Okay? So you've got the transient there, that is a big spike in audio, and if you compress that, you are negating the whole point of a drummer hitting a drum. So what we're doing instead, we've got the attack set so that actually this compressor is not kicking in until the tail. So if I set it to the fastest, watch how it kills this snare stone dead. Nothing. Because it's hearing this snare being hit and it's like, ooh, I've got to turn that down. We don't want that at all. Instead, we want it to bring the tail out. So again, you want me to tell me when? Starting hearing that?
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
How many? I can't quite see how many milliseconds is that now?
We're at 2 and a bit, but crucially, this is going to be different for every single sound you ever. So don't go writing down numbers. You got to use your ears. And yeah. And we'll also, can we give it a little bit of gain? Versus, like, it's really brought the crack and the sort of made the snare quite a bit longer. And to take it even further, we could put some reverb on it. Problem being, if I just stick this, I think I have a reverb ready. Do I? Yeah, C. There's a lot of bleed on the mic, so I'm not putting reverb on my snare. I'm putting it on a little bit of my hi-hat and some of my kick, and that's fine for the bleed to be there. It's part of the overall drum sound. But when we do stuff like this, we need to find a way around it. So rather than gate the snare, which can sound a bit weird, I'm going to print a MIDI track on it, which is, where's Live 12 put it? Convert drums to new MIDI track. I'm not telling you to use samples. Don't panic. There's a place for that, but this is for demonstration reasons. So now we have a perfect print with some false positives of my snare drum. So we need to find which one it thinks the snare is here. Yeah, oh, this is great. So it'll be this 606 here. Yeah. So let's just delete anything it hasn't interpreted as a snare. And what we are left with is a perfect time reference for the snare drum. So let's find a snare that sounds pretty close. It doesn't have to be perfect for this, but
You just drag it in from the actual recording.
Yeah.
yeah, you could do it that way. But for this purpose, I don't think we have to get that granular about it because let's just get the session. And this stuff, not cowbell, yeah, that'll do. Honestly, this is not the biggest deal in the world. Oh, it's there. Is that the right one? It is. And then what we're going to do, and don't forget to do this, we're going to set it to sends only. Where's that gone?
Just below that's the input.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right.
Right. Just go right to the very bottom. See like a little extra thing. Right. There you go.
Yes, there we go. And then, once we send this to our MIDI track, right, so now we have like perfect reverb on the snare without any bleed whatsoever, and we're not cheating, we're not using sample replacement or anything like that. As David pointed out, you can in fact just find an isolated snare hit, drag that in, and just use that.
What I thought you were going to do then,
Oh, come on.
what I thought you were going to do is use the MIDI signal of the snare that you've mapped
Yeah,
to trigger a send from your actual snare. So when the snare hits,
Yeah.
it just sends it at that point.
yeah,
Ah.
and that.
So,
So
I
you-
was like, oh, that's
So you would do that by.
MIDI. Is it envelope follower has MIDI in there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are you sending the MIDI to?
Ah,
Blew my mind there.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay.
Let me know, yeah.
So, at the moment, we've got that send.
Yeah.
If it's currently just all the way up, like you said, it's getting all the hi-hat
Oh.
lead and stuff.
Yeah.
So, technically, you could go in painstakingly and just automate it.
So it's like
Yeah.
gating the
However,
thing.
because we've got that MIDI, you could make that MIDI automate it. I can't remember how you can map envelope follower to send, Simon.
Yeah, I think you can.
So, and I'm pretty sure live 12 envelope follower now
Top
you
left.
can, has a MIDI.
MIDI side.
It does.
Aha, okay. So
There's lots of ways of doing that, isn't there, really?
So to stick an envelope follower on
but
it,
you would put it into the
actual snare.
the audio one.
Yeah.
Because it's the audio we're sending. Oh, I think you can map it anyway.
Just map it.
Yeah.
Let's see if it works.
Let's
And
try
then
it.
the side chain, we should be able to pick up that MIDI track. There we go.
Yep.
So,
Side chain
could use the
from
MIDI one, but it doesn't
Oh.
matter. Yeah. So whatever the name of that.
drums to MIDI, and then as it.
So actually play that MIDI track now. So you can tweak that so it's doing exactly what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And then you can map that to your send on your snare audio track.
So
So we map that
are we
to
just,
C.
sorry.
C on snare one. So you just, I think you just need to go over to the send effect.
Send where it is.
Oh, right, gotcha.
Yes, which was, it was C on snares, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh no, the actual send. Yeah, so effect, go back to your map.
Yeah.
Oh, it's done it, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. What do we sound?
This is awesome.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
So that's what a different way of doing it. That's what-
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's two ways to do it. You can either do it straight from the MIDI track, or if you use envelope follower, they're both essentially doing the same job.
I'm not clear on this. What's it doing? What is envelope follower doing?
So the envelope follower, it's going to react and create some kind of automation based on an input signal. So you've got, so we use the audio envelope follower, it's a MIDI one as well,
Yeah.
which will take MIDI notes. So either one will work. When it receives a signal, it creates that kind of peak that you saw.
Yeah.
Once you've got that kind of line drawing, you can then tell that line to control something else in Ableton.
Sure.
So it can be a delay, a reverb,
Yeah.
but in this case, what we were trying to do is only have the reverb coming from the snare drum, and because it's only triggering with the snare drum, it's ignoring, it's not sending the hi-hats and all the other nonsense from the room that was recorded in.
So essentially, this is using that MIDI track as time reference. So what we're telling that anytime there's a MIDI note there underneath the snare, because again it's perfectly replicated it. Yeah. We are going to send some volume to the snare reverb. And that's probably a slightly more naturalistic way of doing it. I think the straight objects used as a sample is a bit more clean and pristine and a bit more... I don't want to use the word overproduced about my own work, but that, yeah, roughly that. And this drums to MIDI is really useful for a bunch of stuff as well. Like, do it with the kick drum, and then if you're sidechaining your bass to anything, because you can have the same problem, you won't have any false positives. I'm not sure we need to sidechain the bass to the kick for this, because let's do some critical listening. The bass line. The kick drums are almost triggering the bass, so it kind of takes some groove away to do that. But just briefly, if you wanted to do that, let's just do the same thing with the kick. Convert drums. And also, this is great, I'm tangenting a bit, this is great for production as well, because...
Someone requested how to do acoustic drums in Ableton, that's one of the things, so I've got a session on that.
Yeah, oh, awesome, yeah. Yeah, and stuff like that's great. And even, like, say you have like a melodic, because you can do this with melodies as well. So you could take a guitar line, have a synth perfectly double it, right? And that's it. You might not want a perfect double, but if you do, that's a really good way to do it. So this, I think, has got it right first time. Yeah, it thinks it's a snare, but... and we don't need... In this case, we don't need that to... Oh wait, no, never mind. I have selected the other one. We don't need this triggering at all. We can just mute it. No need to find a sample. And then when let's find our bass. If we sidechain I've not compressed this yet. Let's do it with glue compressor. Get the sidechain on. So you can see.
External button press for it to become matters.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's just because
Yeah.
the bass was on the...
Oh yeah, it's doing it with the kick, yeah. Yeah. And that means every time our kick hits, our bass gets out of the way. And you can just do that straight up on the kick drum track, but again, we encounter that problem where it might hit a snare and your bass will get out of the way of that, and suddenly everything's like making your bass sound really unconfident and volume modulating. And the only other thing I'll touch on with drums... Oh, actually, we've got a couple more things. Here's the overheads. Now... Oh, let's find a cymbalsy bit. Sounds okay. But it's still a little thin at the high end. And I want this, I want like a decent shelf on there, because we want a good balance of frequencies, right? We want a lot of highs in the drums. And don't forget, we have in the drum bus already taken a little bit of the high end off. But just to do that a little further, you don't have to touch the EQ, you don't have to touch the volume of the overheads yet. Just stick a saturator on there. Okay? Because all it's doing is warming up your high end. So if we find... Oh, saturator's different.
Yeah.
Oh no. Let's learn this real quick.
Better.
I believe you. Let me... Oh, right, gotcha. Right, so this is what we're saturating, yeah. And now... It's just taking the edge off the cymbals a little bit without taking any of your high end off it, which is really, really nice. And in general, I like to... Any distortion, saturation, stuff like that, I leave my low end pretty clean. And the mids and the highs, that's what gets the dirt and the grit. And then your low end sounds more confident, sounds cleaner, more powerful.
Have you tried raw? Yeah.
I haven't yet. Do you know, I checked for raw.
Multi-band you can choose. So
Yeah.
You see it. The graphics work in the same way as the saturator does then, which shows you the bias.
I don't have it. Is it with 12 point?
Yeah, it's on it.
You have it, yeah, so-
You're on 12 Suite, yeah?
I'm on 12 standard. That'll be why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I cry. But yeah, stuff like that. Like you want, because what you're doing when you're saturating and distorting is you're adding overtones, right? You have the fundamental frequency, which is the actual, the note information, and then the overtones are everything else above that. So if we add more of that, we're taking away from the low end a little bit if we put it on like the sub kick or anything like that. And just to add a little more excitement, I want to do some parallel stuff. Yeah, it's still a bit dead. So, ordinarily what you do is get this, sum your drums, all of them, into a separate track and treat that as a parallel. But I have an unused mic here. FOK, I think that means front of kit. I don't know what this drummer wants me to use this mic for. I've never asked him, so I'm going to ruin it. So I've sort of band passed it a little bit, and I've boosted the snare fundamental and a little bit of the highs here. So this already is going to sound terrible. Yeah. So a bit more of that. Awful. Now, let's make that worse. Let's first go for glue compressor, which is... I'm just going to look it up. I've not done the live 12 labeling thing yet, which everyone keeps telling me to.
Magnus, what does glue compressor do as opposed to a regular compressor?
Oh, yeah, you came in late, didn't you? I explained this at the start. No, it's fine. Compressor is just doing the job of a compressor.
Sure.
All you're doing is reducing the dynamic range of your signal. Glue compressor is imparting some sort of character and saturation onto it. It's supposed to model like an SSL desk, I think.
Okay.
So that's the difference between the two, and you use them for different things.
Thanks.
But let's demonstrate that in a really good way. Let's absolutely ruin this. Compress the bejesus out of it. Oh. Yeah, just break this thing. Trust me, this is going to make sense in a second. And we're also going to distort it a bit, which if I had raw, thanks man. Let's try that.
You could use amp.
Amp, that's a fantastic idea.
On the blues.
Yeah.
You just have to take the filter
Yeah.
off amp simulation and I'll press clear on the right.
Yeah.
Just do clear
Yeah.
and search.
Uh,
Why it's not showing, it's just amp.
I mean, you know what? Screw it.
You do have amp, don't you? I think.
Yeah, I for sure have amp. It's on something. Yeah, anyway. Let's see what this sounds like. Absolutely. But let's just not blow these poor little monitors up though. And those highs are actually pretty bad. Okay, so what we have is a... it's still... Let's get the mids and the amp out there. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're making a crazy effect to bring in alongside the drums, okay? So if I start it completely down, let's play the drums. I'm sorry most of this has been drums, but again, the hardest thing to mix. You gotta get them right. And then we bring it in slowly. Suddenly, they're lively, they're energetic, right? They've got power in them. And that, if I play this alongside and then I suddenly mute it, boring, flat. Getting a little bit phasey stuff on the cymbals, but I kind of don't mind it. And yeah, I think I want to move on from drums now because I'm conscious that I've been talking about them a lot. Let's do low end, let's do bass. Now, this is very much a sort of demonstration signal. I was sent a DI for this. But first I'm going to show you what to do when all you have is an amp signal, which does happen. Like I said at the start, I was just sent these tracks and I can't go back and say, hey, I'd rather mix a DI, I'd rather mix an amp. You just got to work with what you've been given. So let's listen to the bass. By the way, Ableton's bass amp, pretty good. It's alright. But it's a little bit, there's not much definition in there. So instead of what I would do if I just had an amp is just stick a multiband on there, which Ableton has. Multiband compression, it's just compression specifically on one band of EQ, right? So if we just compress the life out of the lows, where's my kick actually? I want to stay out of the way of that. I've boosted. Yeah, let's stay above the kick with the bass for this. You either want your bass below your kick or your kick above your bass. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, for this one, I'm having my kick take a lot of the low frequencies and my bass, because I feel like there's a bit more definition in the kick on this track. Already.
Top of the food chain, on top of the world.
If I turn that off, it just disappears. Yeah. And what that means is your fundamental frequency of your bass, like the actual notes the bass is playing, they're always crystal clear and punching defined. But all the articulation, the stuff above all that, that is still very much affected by the bass player's playing and his dynamics. But if we don't have an amp signal, if you have a DI signal, I actually prefer it that way. So let's put a pause on this way of mixing it for now. I'll keep that EQ for now. I'm going to duplicate this. Should do the same. Command D that, by the way. If anyone doesn't know the key command. So we're going to get an auto filter. Stick it, start here. I'm going to take everything out. Below like 120-ish. Okay, so now we have just this. And I'm going to copy this, paste it onto my other DI track.
What's the auto filter? What's auto?
You can automate it, essentially, which we're not doing in this case. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, great. Thanks.
And on this one I've pasted it onto, I'm going to flip it. So we're actually high passing this signal, okay? So here's all my highs. Beautiful DI high end, but we're going to fix that because I'm going to stick the bass amp back on here. So what we have is the lows from the DI and the highs. What did I just do? I just pressed a bunch of key commands, that's what I did. Yeah. Let me get out of the automation.
A.
Is it just A? Still?
You just need to press K first. Or is it M? Because you've got your MIDI keyboard on this keyboard. There you go. Yeah.
Cool. What was that? Yeah. So we're going to filter all this out. Bit lower. This is how I work, by the way. Haphazard. And then yeah, you literally just flip this to high pass. So we have the lows from the bass DI and the highs from the bass amp, and we can treat them separately, and then group them if we want, so we can EQ them as one, treat them as one. So I'm actually going to, just for the sake of workflow, stick this on a group. Because you can get granular and mess with individual, but it's just easier. And then I think, you know, like we talked about before, we want a crystal clear, like defined low end, and we can have more dynamics in the highs. So we can just compress the life out of the lows. Literally, your low end can be pretty much a brick if you do it this way, because we still have all the note definition and all that stuff from the amp signal. So now, if we solo this whole group, absolutely. And I much prefer that, to be honest, to this undefined kind of, oh, we've not even put the amp on there. So compare that. Right, here's the both of them together. Here's just the amp on its own. hear all the lows that are pretty much vanished. So this is just a little bit of parallel processing, really. If you want to, like, say you've done jargon, that's what you've done there. Did you hear that when I turned that filter back on? All of the low end sort of came back, weirdly enough, even though I just took a load out. And that's because if you have too many things responsible for your low end, it very quickly muddies up. Same with the kick. Like, you want like a couple things doing your bass and your sub. Well, if you think about, say you played a chord on a bass, like, no one plays bass chords. I'm a bass player myself. Don't do it. Because it gets all muddy and gross. And you have overtones clashing with each other. So, yeah, when we do this, very, very few things, even compressed so it's an even like simpler like brick of a signal. And we can do similar parallel stuff on the kick as well. Going back to drums, I like mixing drums. We can duplicate that. Or in fact, with the kick, you actually don't have to do that weird duplicating because we're not putting an amp on it or anything. I don't think. We could just stick multiband on there, same as we did before. So we've got a little compressor grabbing it. Let's actually. So that compressor's doing very little. It's honestly more of a volume boost than anything else. And then if we take mids and highs out of this multiband, give it a little bit more lows under the bass, as we talked about. In fact, what's my drum bus at? 61. Thanks for that tip about it. I had no idea it told you the note. We're near enough there. That's almost too boomy. For the purposes of this, it's great because that's how you do that. And then, how long do we have left? Oh no. I would like to, in terms of the guitars for this one, a lot of it is in the panning and the automation. Because, like we talked about, the stuff you get sent is the stuff you get sent. And all this was pretty much this joint thing here, glue compressor and compressor. What I'm doing is I'm getting compressor to sort of do the work, and then glue comp is, as we talked about, just imparting that analog. So I'm really not trying to get glue compressor to do any actual work here. And the reason for that is if we just, that's actually a bit high, if we dimed this up to like 4 or whatever, it would squeeze it a little too much. It sort of suck the life out of it. If we do it in 2 stages, this sort of dual stage compression, it's a bit less obvious. It's a bit less sort of gross. But you know, it's still getting that less dynamic range. It's still tight and punchy. And you can hear I've got that going through, I think it's a plate reverb, and it's pretty intense, but it is not, it's not getting in its own way or anything like that. And obviously if you still find that problem, what you can do is side chain, like just stick a compressor on here, side chain it back to the signal, and then it will turn down the volume of the reverb as the guitar itself is playing. So you just have the tails. I don't think we have to do that for this. Because the guitar player is great on this. She's left gaps for reverb to ring out. So I've just set it to that, and yeah, it's great. But you can see here, and this is another reason we put reverbs on sends. I've got this panned quite aggressively. That's the chorus. So Orla's guitar here is on the left, which might actually be that side for you guys.
There's only
Yeah.
one speaker working there.
Oh no, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit biased to where I'm sitting.
I was sitting in front of that, but that's not working.
Do it all again now.
Yeah,
Just do it all again
Yeah.
now.
Think of all the great, think of Motown.
Well, I like to mix in mono.
Well, people do.
There's
Yeah.
a different league left.
No, you should check in mono, because especially if you're doing stuff like what we're about to do.
Yeah, that's the whole what single orotone kind
Yeah.
of philosophy, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't mix in mono. I do check mixes in mono for this reason. So, my Orla's guitar is on the left here, but I've sent her reverb to the right, and vice versa for the left-hand guitar. And you'll hear if I solo this. Reverb's here, guitar's here. Is that speaker on now? Yeah. Let's give it a little more. Yeah. And that is going to make the room feel a lot bigger. Because if you shut your eyes and picture it, your guitar player is over here, and his reverb's hitting the wall on the other side of you, right? And we can push that even further by, you might have noticed, watch my automation here. So, when you're in your verses, obviously automation, the obvious thing to do is give your bass and your drums a little bit of a volume boost in the chorus and all that stuff. But some cooler stuff you can do is make the space feel wider. So the way we do that is having stuff closer to the center in the verses, and then as we get to the chorus, we get pushed out. So my guitars have done it. The reverb from my guitars have done it on their opposite side. We can, let's have a look at that reverb we did earlier. Give the drums a little more verb. Still learning. There it is. Mix a snare verb. And then just notch that up a bit like that. You can also, if you press B for pencil, you pull up the pencil tool and you can literally just draw automation in like this. I am quite surgical with it, so I just do little moves like this. It's really up to you guys what your workflow is with that. But so now, if we listen to the snare here. It's the illusion of the room getting bigger. So if we have longer reverbs as well, you can, right? Like literally, it goes from talking in a room like this to a church and then back again. And all that is going to make your choruses feel exciting. I think the number one thing that sets apart a more professional sounding mix to an amateur one is like people make things sound great and then they sort of leave it and it's a very static mix and nothing changes. I think spending a lot of time on automation, just little things like that, sending things out further, more reverb, and yeah, a volume boost on your kick, and you maybe even like this parallel track that we had on the drums comes up as well, just to make them a little more exciting. It was front of kick, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, and another thing on automation, I learned this the super hard way. If you are doing volume stuff and you play with the fader, right? So let's. That's all cool, but then if I say I send the mix off and I get a note and they're like, hey, we want the parallel to be a bit lower or something, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll turn it down a bit. It's now deleted the automation I just did, and you've got to go back in. So if we get rid of the automation on that, instead pull any utility and just give it more gain instead. It's gain going into this channel, it's the exact same thing, except now if we play with the overall volume here, we're not losing our progress. Oh man, I have had headaches with that once upon a time. So that's a great way to do it. So yeah, if we... More energy, more excitement in the choruses. And yet you can really get creative with stuff like that. I think that's the sort of the fun bit of mixing, the creative side as opposed to the sciencey side of it, which we've been talking about a lot. And yeah, is there anything I have not covered that you guys wanted to hear about? Even if it's like fundamentals-y stuff that I may have glossed over a bit?
When you do your mixing, does someone else master it?
Yes.
And if so, do they want stems as well?
No, they just want the WAV of the and for that reason.
On the kind of final chain, or do they keep? Because normally mastering like nothing on the master chain, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, they really do like nothing on the master chain. I think in this case, oh no, I left Wolf compressor on. Ah, damn it. So here's what that was doing. I actually don't like that in this mix.
And when it comes to mastering, do you do any kind of analysis on the final file before you send it off, like using a correlator meter, correlameter?
Sometimes
because I've had feedback before from masters that say, oh, you've got phase issues, can you sort the whiteness out of parts?
Yeah, I think when I get feedback like that, I very much sort of eyeball it. But are you referring to like a spectrum analyzer sort of thing and stuff like that?
It's the hardest thing to say. Basically, yeah, it checks for when things are, normally you can mid-side, and it tends to be the low end that's more of an issue.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
It's more for like electronic music.
And for those, do we know about phase issues and the problem there? Yeah.
I know what phase issues are.
Yeah. So generally, it is a problem with load and a problem with drums as well. Sometimes it is you've just got too many plugins going on, and it can cause actual lag, and it comes in a millisecond later and kills all your drums. Sometimes it's an issue with miking the kit that you've not noticed or picked up on. And in that instance, it is a bit of a nightmare when you have this many mics on a kit. But you can, let's say your snare's a bit out or something, and the audio is getting there a bit late. You can literally go into a granular level here and just nudge so it is coming in bang on with the rest of it. That's the first thing I look at, and then I go up from there. Because sometimes it is me and I've gotten a bit too crazy with it and I've caused phase issues.
How would you do that? I actually read that. Some engineer was talking about that this week. Literally exactly this, like moving the track, kicking, nudging the track forward. So where do you do it?
Look,
in Ableton?
Oh, you can literally just
anywhere.
Yeah. There, you can just move it back.
You just zoom in real close and you could.
So you can zoom in to sample level.
Is there a way of like to the start point of the sound? Would you actually move the actual waveform, or would
the whole thing?
Okay.
And what I would do is I would find I had to do this with. I used to record live sessions with two pencil condensers pointing at an acoustic and a vocal mic. And if I hadn't done my job correctly in the room at the time, what I'd find is the information was reaching mics at different times. So I would literally find like a peak, like a solid, like this would be good. And if I found that like, yeah, you can literally look at where, so this is about the same here, this is all fine. And that's when you'd realise, oh, this is a miking issue. And you would literally nudge it until it is perfectly in line here.
So that isn't one of the plugins in Ableton's help pages.
There's
in the lessons, one of them is exactly that.
Yeah.
Auto align or something.
Yeah, there is.
That's next on the list.
Is that a stock?
Yeah, in the help, at least on the suite.
Yeah.
Suite.
On
have
Suite,
a number of things, like wacky Max drum machines and stuff. Yeah, and then there is like this auto align thing.
Yeah, and there are some paid stuff. You can literally just highlight your. If you are finding it's constantly a headache, it's a really good thing to get, and it will just phase align everything for you.
Because audio engineer a tape measure, so bro.
Yeah.
Telling me it's inside, please.
Literally just.
One's upside down, one's that way.
Yeah, that would be one. A trick I learned in college was to take a audio cable, because it's usually a drum problem. Put one end on the snare, hold the other end, touch your overhead left and overhead right, because if it's taut, it'll be the same length, and that will kill any phase issues with you.
It's physically measuring it.
It's the physical distance between the mics and whatever your instrument is doing.
Speed of sound's quite slow.
Yeah.
Relatively compared to electrons. So it'll just pick it up and it's
Yeah.
a tiny bit out can make a big difference.
Could I ask a question about not mastering plugins, spectral analysis plugins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people use it, because quite often, I don't know about you guys, but something when I'm looking at if people have Instagram pages and look at them, by the way, Google Lens is brilliant for this. If there's something you don't recognise,
I'm trying to find
just
it.
take a picture, stick it in Google Lens, and it just comes straight up. Oh, well, that's what it is. Quite often people have these TC Electronic Clarity M's. They're like spectral analyzers.
Yeah.
And they seem to work with them. And I was asking ChatGPT about it. That's also very useful. And it said, yes, some people use those, but you can just use like spectral analysis plugins.
Yeah.
Are they very hungry? Do they work?
No.
CPU-wise, do they work?
See, Vox and Go do a bunch of basically free.
No.
And they're all great.
Okay.
So yeah, and you can, it's Vox and Go Span, which is like a really adjustable kind of spectrum analyzer. You can change the refresh rate, how often it averages it out of time, and you can set it up in Ableton, sidechain to a reference. So you can have a reference track muted, playing in the background, and it will bring up the waveform.
Yes.
And then you can superimpose your waveform over the top to see, wow, this has got a massive boost at 1K, mine's missing. Just visually to check it. It's quite useful. It's free.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it is handy to have and also just in your own mix as well, you might find, especially if you've been doing it for hours, you might look at a spectrum analyzer and be like, oh, I have way more 250 than anything else, or like, oh Jesus, there's no high end. And that's when you, first of all, go for a coffee, have a break, come back with fresh ears, and then be like, oh yeah, I'm missing some of this stuff. And usually you can't hear it, but sometimes it's nice to have a visual representation saying, hey. But I did sort of skip over the question before. In terms of my master bus, because I send it to a mastering engineer, I tend to leave this pretty blank. Sometimes if there's like a build-up across the whole mix of 250 or whatever, it's quicker to go in and pull it out. But I do, every now and again, you saw that I had Wolf compressor left on.
So you'll send in the file as well as the WAVs, the Ableton file?
No, just the WAV.
Just the WAV, okay.
I think the guy I've used more often than not uses a lot of hardware instead of and that's sort of why I don't like to do it myself. I feel like a good mastering engineer is specialised, like his room to do it, as opposed to I don't have the best. It's treated. It's not the best room in the world. I have KRKs, so I'd rather have someone impartial, and they might come back to me and say, hey. Like you say, there's some phase issues or whatever. But yeah, in terms of master bus, that's pretty much it. Sometimes some tapey stuff as well. Some like if you want to like really screw your mix up a little bit at the end and just give it some life and some saturation. Tape plugins are great for that. I use like there's Universal Audio what's it called? Analog Machines. That's really handy for that. I'm going to moan about it a bit though, because I like how it sounds. I've grown to enjoy it, but I'm a control freak, and it stresses me out that it's literally just these 4 settings and this drive, and that would be fine, except look at all the presets.
Yes.
It's one. It's one drive control. I don't understand. Anyway.
No, I have to say, you can buy, they have this Essentials bundle for 50 quid.
Yeah.
You get it in that, and I've been the same. I mean, I opened up like some of them, I thought, well, that's cool, I can use this. But this one is like very mysterious, you know.
It doesn't tell you much of what it's doing. It's one drive control and one filter, essentially. And we're talking about third-party plugins, and that is a good time to end the talk, I think. Dave?
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers for that.
Thank you.